Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo 3DS, and of course, PC Steam version. So, last time we actually did manage to completely done with the first half in new forms of Scorching Skies, and able to actually unlock some of our favorite old school characters here and there, like the forms of Vice and etc. And yeah, we're going to be continuing on and moving on to the forms of, well, some more continuing of the forms of Scorching Skies. I just wanted to let you guys know, this is actually my second attempt for this recording session. As you can see right there, you probably noticed that originally back in during the likes of the last videos, that normally I end the video off by the forms of 54 stars, and as you can see on screen, I've got myself 56. That's only because I've accidentally managed to did this in the first recording attempt in the forms of that specific event by the forms of sprint. But the bad thing about the first attempt of that recording session though, on the other hand, is the forms of the bad quality, but in forms of 480p instead of like the usual 1080p, at least for the most part in the forms of the modern consoles, unlike in the old school retro consoles that normally runs at about like, you know, 480p and stuff like that. So as a result though, I managed to fix that everything now, see if then though everything else will be crystal clean as far as the actual quality is concerned. I kinda wish it has like a 60 frames per second option, but still I don't have it yet. But even then, I'm a little bit off topic right there. But yeah, what I did done for the first attempt on that recording session, well, it's been alright, but then again, the quality is a little bit too mixed bag, but in forms of, let's just say, for, you know, 480p by complete accident on the first attempt of this recording session. But this is actually a second attempt recording this, and hopefully the quality should be twice as much more better than the likes of the 480p. And as a result, yeah, everything else will be just as well and welcoming. So anyways though, let's get into this first mission in this video, and now the forms of the fact that we're going on to Sprint, a new type of mission we're actually going to be coming across into. Sprint, if you remember from the time trials in the forms of any other Mario Kart games, excluding this game, and especially in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, think of like the time trials, except you only have like 3 different chances to be able to actually beat the Ghost Data, which even then though, basically what we have to do is basically we need to beat someone else's time record, or for this matter, a lap record, so that way you can able to actually just successful this mission, and then hopefully you can able to actually get yourselves into your, well, some star progressioning, which even then though, as you can tell, I'm actually on Class B, which again, I'd like to show you guys off from this particular mission because I've accidentally just managed to complete this particular task when I realized that my quality of the video has actually gone pretty mixed bag. So, you know, again, we're hopefully going to be getting ourselves a nice little clean quality by the forms of 1080p. So everything else will be checked out there, so I digress. So the lap time we need to be able to beat by the forms of Joe Musashi, by the forms of Shinobi character, is basically we need to beat him for about 1 minute and 22 seconds and possibly randomized milliseconds to spare. So even then, oh, there you go, now we've pretty much passed on that, but technically I've already done this, but in forms of by the fact that I've you know, accidentally just managed to able to complete this on the first attempt. But you know, let's not get into that in the moment because technically we've already beaten this particular mission, but I just want to show you guys that off. So I just wanted to let you guys know that Class B I've already always attempted to choose, but in forms of some of these challenges to be like this. But anyways though, that's it for Sprint, and now we move on to yeah, I don't have enough stars to be able to actually unlock the next pathway just yet. So anyways, let's go back into Pursuit type of mission once again, but this time around though, we're actually going to be anticipating in the forms of a different course. And basically, this might be very familiar for you guys, for those of you who ever played, you know, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing before, at least expecting if you ever purchased this on the forms of the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, but in forms of the DLC content in this game, or in that game. Now normally it contains like Metal Sonic and the forms of the Death Egg Zone Egg Hanger. Well, Egg Hanger makes a return in this game, but this time around though, well, pretty much, well, it's pretty much the same thing for the most part though, but except the fact of the matter is that there's no choice of music selection I'm afraid for this point, because even then though we always have to stuck with the forms of Cosmic Fall music, but in forms of Shadow the Hedgehog, which, sure, I found that the soundtrack in Shadow the Hedgehog is completely unmemorable, which the only tracks I do remember though is the forms of with Starblast, because I have to replay that damn stage 10 times in order to actually just reach the very early, or in this case, reach the final ending of the game, which is downright ridiculous if you ask me. So anyways though, enough about that, so let's go ahead and get started by the forms of this pursuit mission, and just like before, we need to take down this particular tank until we're able to actually success with this mission. So, not too complicated and not too tough either, so this is basically we have to do the exact same thing, unless if you keep on getting hit by those little projectiles like this, then don't worry though, the health supplies will be still showing up every time we actually come across into these particular parts like this. So, not too shabby there. Oh, how'd that hit me? Gee, I wonder why tank always hurts me all this for this much, but I digress. So yeah, it's been a couple of days since actually coming back into this game at long last, because after all that, the reason why it's been a long time since actually going to be come back to this, because, well, recently that, you know, back into the likes of April, that Xbox Live Arcade, or in this case Xbox Live Marketplace, did recently announce by the forms of how the fact that we've now finally got a chance to get ourselves the Sonic Generations Casino Night Zone free DLC, which is really cool, especially noticeable. It's been about, you know, almost 7 years since we actually finally get a chance to play Casino Night Zone in the forms of the Xbox 360 version of Sonic Generations, which I thought that might be added in here and there, especially noticeable that how the fact that Mario and Blossom already showed that off. And also Mario has recently finished up with NES remakes by the forms of the Rainbow Stars run through on that particular game, so I found it really cool by the looks of all that. And also Daffy has been recently finished up with the forms of the main playthrough of the forms of Sonic Unleashed for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3. So obviously Daffy wasn't exactly done with Sonic Unleashed just yet, because obviously he's now going to be waiting until he decides to do some DLC stuff here and there. So even though thought might be for funner or for laughter, but I don't usually think it is. So there we go. We've now accomplished the forms of the pursuits type of mission, and we've actually unlocked the egg hangar. And speaking of such, we now move on to the next area, by the forms of Twilight Engine. So, as we expected, that the challenges themselves can get a little bit more longer, and especially noticeable tougher at the very end, because obviously there's still more to come here. And let's go ahead and use Delicate Patrick on this particular level. And it appears to be we're going on to the Cruisin' Mansion type of stage. But even then, I don't know exactly what this level's called. I believe this level's called Graveyard Gig. I think that's what the actual stage itself is called. But even then, know that this might actually be one of the toughest tracks in the game for some people, because, well, we'll get to that in a bit momentarily once we're able to actually get into the actual stage itself. And basically, once again we have to race between, you know, all the other players, so to speak. So let's get started. Okay, so we have ourselves a good boost start for the most part, though. And yeah, really glad to be able to come back to this, though. But even then, no, as far as I've sort of established that from the very beginning of this Let's Play, that I was originally able to actually go for this particular World Tour mode by the forms of 100% completion of this. Well, unfortunately, though, it will be not happening, though, because even now, I'll explain more on that details when we actually get into the latest few worlds in the forms of World Tour. Although the only ones I cared about is the forms of the unlockable characters. Well, I don't really care about these mods, to be honest, because it feels like, well, something is a little bit more of a somewhat very much like how it does in the forms of stickers in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Well, usually I've always cared about stickers in Brawl because although they might be a little bit randomized at one point or another, and especially noticeable, it might be multitasking throughout. But anyway, the Graveyard Gig, as far as the actual stage itself, it always feels more likely a combination of both from the likes of I would say Deadly Roots and Sewer Scrapes, but in forms of, you know, the first game in the series, but in forms of the first game in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with the Cruisin' Mansion and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I believe also Outer Forest as well, I think. But except the fact of the matter is, we got ourselves, oh god, I got electrified. That's pretty inconsistency right there. So yeah, you do need to be able to avoid as many hazards as possible, but in forms of, this is the reason why how the fact that some of the people out there always attempt to think that this is by far the toughest track in the game, because well, normally it does have a lot of sharp turns you want to go for, especially noticeable there's too many hazards here and there. Like, for instance, there's actually buddy forms of the electricity contraption, and even especially noticeable there is zombies, which we're about to get in a bit later on, and even especially noticeable buddy forms of, you know, as I mentioned this before, I always hate stunt fails, which even then know that stunt fails can easily be the worst aspect about the game in my opinion, just because, well, not just for the sake of, like, if you get screwed over for that point, oh god, I almost got screwed over right there. In fact, I've got myself my super pickup, so even then know that that way we can able to actually just get a little bit more further ahead from us. And also be very careful with these particular spider obstacles there, because that way it also spins you out, so even then knows how to watch out for those. So just keep that in mind. So, yeah, this is pretty much tricky for the most part though, because you have to deal with so much. But until we get to the third and final lap, things will get a little bit more different as far as the actual track layout is concerned, which even then will explain more details as soon as we're able to actually bypass through those electricity sections. So even then that way we can able to actually drive carefully, then hopefully just go for a bit, trying to able to dodge as many obstacles as possible. And there we go, we got ourselves some boost here, so that's pretty good news indeed for my liking. And yeah, we still have to dodge these electricity, but the dumbest thing about it is that there is no way we can actually able to avoid them. Especially noticeable if you're actually trying to activate the actual boost pad. Well, there's no way we can able to avoid it from the center. We always have to go for accurately left or right, while just completely avoiding the boost pad, not to mention throughout, which has always been a little bit more irritating if you ask me. So anyways though, now we move on to the third and final lap, and things can get a little bit different here because, well, the actual map layouts can get a little bit different because, yeah, these little fence stuff is blocking off, so that means we have to go down towards here. So you can know that's because, well, very much like how it does it in both Donkey Kong on the arcade machines, and especially noticeable in Sonic Unleashed in general for the rooftop run nighttime level, we go sell some barrels to dodge through, even for the daytime level in forms of, you know, rooftop run, and even especially noticeable in rooftop run in Sonic Generations for both classic and modern Sonic. So, speaking of which, but in forms of the voice cast, or in this case the voice clips, but in forms of this game, specifically the Sonic characters, some of these Sonic characters heavily borrowed them, but in forms of not only for I would say Sonic Free Riders for the Xbox 360, but it's also Sonic Generations as well, if I could assume so for myself. Granted, that's only because of the fact that, well, between Sonic Generations came out in the forms of 2011, and then this game came around in 2012, so that was about a year later between the two, but that's just how it is when it comes to the actual voice clips, because normally in the, you know, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, some of these Sonic's voice clips heavily borrowed from Sonic 06, which can be the same applies to how it does in the forms of Sega Superstars Tennis. But, you know, it's kind of a weird choice though, at least as far as I'm concerned with this. And also the same applies by the forms of the original Sega Superstars in the forms of the PlayStation 2, where normally it's been voice clips are heavily borrowed from Sonic Adventure 2 most likely, at least as far as I'm concerned with this. Mainly due to both Sonic and Shadow, but that's just how I think about it. But anyways, now we're done with that challenge, and we don't have that enough stars just yet, so even though hopefully we can able to unlock that, so let's go ahead and get started by the forms of the battle race, and let's just go ahead and do a little bit of a challenge right there to able to anticipate for Class A. So let's go for the ultimate life form, Shadow the Hedgehog, and let's go ahead and use the Dreamcast mod, because, you know, he's made his first appearance in the obviously his first appearance was obviously in Sonic Adventure 2 from the Sega Dreamcast. But yeah, that's as far as I can see how this will turn out. Speaking of the Dreamcast, I haven't really touched upon the Dreamcast for quite some time now, but even then, I still have owned it, but to be honest, there's not much else I can actually play through besides Sonic games and all that stuff, even though the only thing about it though is the fact that, well, I've already completely done with both Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, but there's actually the third and the final game I need to complete in the forms of the Sonic games on the Dreamcast, and that's the forms of Sonic Shuffle, which this might take a really long time to able to actually complete Sonic Shuffle, for not only just because of how the fact with the forms of we have to go through story mode, but it's also because of how the fact that we need to do tons of unlockables. Well, I don't know if you noticed for this point, folks, but there is no need for unlockable boards though, to be honest, because much like the ones in Mario Party 10, that all the boards have been unlocked from the get-go, which, you know, feels a little bit weird. Although, unlike the ones in the other Mario Party games, well, no exception being by the forms of, well, Mario Party 10 and Mario Party the Top 100, that normally has like just those boards unlocked from the start. But normally in the other Mario Party games, that you normally have to unlock certain boards before you're able to actually unlock everything throughout, which is a little bit more different, or in this case a little bit odd throughout, but I digress. As far as I've noticed, something right from the start though is that if you see on screen, by the forms of a couple of seconds ago, that normally myself, or in this case Sonic the Hedgehog if you will, normally he managed to accidentally fall off the course, and what happens is though is that if you manage to fall out on that particular obstacles or something like that, or if you fell off the track, I'm good assuming that you weren't able to actually lose a bit of health on you, so even though that you have to watch out for that. So far that Ulala has she recently annihilated for that particular point. And let's just go ahead and just knock out Mimi right there. Although I get the feeling that she was able to actually hit me for the most part though. Although, to be fair, it might be a little bit easier throughout, unlike the ones in Galactic Parade, just because, well, they have multitude of pathways you can actually go to, mainly due to the fork in the road, and especially noticeable with the forms of alternative pathways you can take through, as I mentioned earlier. So anyways though, let's go ahead and just toss these snowballs right at Knuckles, even though the aiming skills and tactics and all that stuff, it makes it a little bit more accuracy. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. But at least I hit Mimi. In fact, Mimi already annihilated thanks to Knuckles the Echidna right there. So speaking of which, let's go ahead and launch the missile right at him. And how much health does he have left? I'm presuming he only has like 2 health left, which, sure enough, that might be some consumption throughout. What's he doing? What is Sonic? Huh? What happened there? I don't know what it is, but for some reason Sonic just got stuck at the very end of the actual course, but all of a sudden he just kills himself? Oh god, that was hilarious though. In fact, this might actually be one of the most weirdest matches I've ever encountered in forms of the actual battle race. Bazam! Yes! Nice. Eat that, Knuckles. That's what you get. Oh my gosh, that was a achievement unlocked. Oh yeah, that's only because I actually managed to use the one of those you know, mods to able to actually use from, because I actually used the Dreamcast mod on Shadow, so I think that's the only why how I managed to able to actually just to get that achievement, or in this case, that sticker. So yeah, there you go then. Oh man, I had to be honest with you folks, but even then, that's the most weirdest match I've ever encountered in my whole entire life. Especially noticeable how the fact that some of these computer opponents can get a little bit more, I don't know about you, but I'm considering they're acting like an idiot and stuff like that. Well, I don't know exactly for you though, but anyways, back on to let's just go and do the egg hanger right now, and let's just go ahead and go back into Class B for the, you know, the rival races or versus and stuff like that. And let's go ahead and use Vice from Skies of Arcadia, and we can able to do just trying to able to actually beat 4 rivals. And I'm assuming this might be something to do with based off from, well, the majority of the Sonic characters. I'm assuming that much, because once again we're going back into the egg hanger. But in forms of, ever since during the likes of Sonic and Sig All-Stars Racing after all. So, yeah, let's get into it. I guess there's not much else to really talk for this point, folks, to be honest, because even I know that we've only got about, like, well, today was actually in forms of the 6th of May, so even then, though, we've only got about 12 more days left. What, is it 12 more days? Yes, I'm presuming it's 12 more days. Until when Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition will get its release in the forms of the English versions of the game, in the forms of the 18th of May, which I'm actually going to be pre-ordered that during the likes of Friday the 11th, so just in case I can able to actually just to get my hands on that particular version. Well, I won't exactly touch upon the Switch version just yet though, because although this might be sound a little bit illogical to some of you people, but I'm still pretty much at the actual informs of the Wii U version, and especially the 3DS versions at the moment, because I need to able to actually practice those. Because if you probably do not know already, is that until when it gets to 2019, I'm actually starting to be doing the Let's Play of the forms of Hyrule Warriors eventually, because even then, well, considerably, it only will happen until when it gets to 2019, but that's as far as I can really say about this for the most part though. So anyways, let's launch these missiles from the back, or in this case these firework rockets and all that stuff, but even then, yeah, that's as far as I can say about this one turns out. It's a shame that I can't able to actually change the music into the forms of General Offensive from Sonic Adventure, sorry, and also Egg Fleet from Sonic Heroes and all that stuff, because those tracks are very, very memorable. But I'm not so comfortable with the forms of the Cosmic Fall from the forms of Shadow the Hedgehog, because what I found the music in that game is again so unmemorable. Because of how generic and how it will become. But even then, it's just more likely just what you think it is. But anyways, next opponents we're going to be faced up against is II from, you know, Super Monkey Ball. Still, I'm really hoping how the fact that it's going to be the next Super Monkey Ball game announcement, but it still is no sign of it. Because even though the last time we actually got ourselves a proper Monkey Ball game, not counting the Monkey Ball bounce, because there's more likely just a different type of gameplay style. Well, we haven't seen a new Monkey Ball game since, you know, Banana Splits for the PlayStation Vita, and for almost 6 years now, which even then, because of how the fact that, you know, Banana Splits came out the exact same year as when this game came out, in the forms of in 2012, and we haven't got a new Monkey Ball game at least for 6 years, jeez, because we now moved on to 2018, but normally as far as it might actually counts for that part. So anyway, let's go ahead and launch those snowballs back at Dr. Eggman. Yes, we're actually going to be faced off against with Dr. Eggman, which I found was a little bit odd still, because of how the fact that Dr. Eggman, he was shown up in the forms of the opening cutscene to the game, but normally he doesn't get unlocked from the get-go this time around though, which even though unlike the ones in the first game, now normally you can able to actually play as Dr. Eggman from the start. So anyways, that concludes that particular objective. So now let's move on to the next mission. So even though I wonder what next set of challenges we might actually come across into, but we'll see what happens there. And for the most part though, that should be good and welcoming, and I really do apologize if I felt a little bit too sniffy around here. That's only because of how the fact that, well, I didn't get a cold or anything, it's just a little bit too much for my liking. So anyways, let's go ahead and do the ring race, and let's do the medium course, and we're going to be going back to Metal Sonic, and let's go ahead and choose a different mod. Let's do handling now, because even though that I haven't really tested this out before, but in forms of the handling, but it'll do way better in handling as opposed to any other different status. So let's see how this will turn out, especially noticeable how the fact that we're going to be flying most of the time in this particular objective, which is sure enough it might as well will be. So even though, let's get this started. So yeah, recently, not to mention how the fact that I actually managed to play myself Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze recently on the Nintendo Switch. Now I'm actually on to the actual 5th world. Well, now I know you guys are probably thinking that, oh crap, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah, this is what happens if you actually miss the ring, is the fact that you weren't able to get yourselves a penalty time, which, you know, very much like the ones in the forms of the equestrian events, in the forms of Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games for, let's just say both the Wii and the Nintendo 3DS. I almost said Wii U for some reason, because normally, because of how the fact that I was really used to with the new generations instead of like the retro gaming generations, which even then, so sure is a bit odd there, but I digress. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! Keep missing all those rings. Jeez. I don't think this is a mod I'm gonna be using for the time being, because even then that'll just potentially screw my controls a little bit. But at least hopefully I can able to actually predict on that. But anyways, we got ourselves one last checkpoint before we're able to actually finish this particular challenge, and things will be able to be just as welcoming as far as it will be. So anyways, let's keep on boosting. So yeah, as I was saying, but in forms of now I know you guys are probably thinking, but in forms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch, what mode did you exactly choose for your actual own playthrough on that particular version? Well, to be honest, it was actually funky mode, because I've already accomplished everything in the forms of the original Wii U version. Well, I need to get back into the Wii U version just for the sake of 200%ing on it, but it might be really difficult in some parts. But even then, I might as well do that on my own time. But the reason why I choose Funky Mode to begin with, because I will admit though right away, Funky Kong is actually pretty easy to use, or a lot funner to use. Well, sure, he's still incredibly broken, because I'm sure enough, because you can't able to harm yourselves with spikes and everything. Especially noticeable, he got himself 5 hearts instead of the usual 3. Well, normally Donkey Kong and the crew normally has like 3 hearts, just like the ones in Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS. But even though, for the most part though, Funky Kong got the most hearts out of it. So anyways, I think I should probably do like, I would say 1 more event for this video. And that way we can able to actually end things off for this point here. So next up we have is the Boost Challenge. And we're going back into Ada's lair, but in forms of from Golden Axe. And basically I'm going to be choosing Class B on that specific task at the moment. So even though we have to once again just have to boost all the way to the actual checkpoint. And that's how we can able to do throughout. So even though that will be very, very, very intricate. But anyways. So, again, you know, there's not much else I can tell, because even though that, again, as I mentioned to you earlier, that I've played a bit of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch recently, and I'm actually on the 5th world at the moment, by the forms of the Juicy Islands, which even though that particular world can get really, really tough later on, especially noticeable in Donkey Kong Island. If I'm sorry for a little bit of a spoiler alert territory right there, because if you guys haven't experienced the Wii U version of the game and stupid stunt fails, God, I really hate that sometimes, especially noticeable it always throws me off. Well, it doesn't bother me as much in the forms of the original game, but in this, it just always screws me up every time when I was performing stunts and tricks and everything, which, to be honest, I wasn't really too thrilled about the announcer keep on saying like, stunt fail, stunt fail. That just gets pretty exaggerating at points for me though, in my opinion. But anyway. But in forms of whenever I first experienced in forms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Switch, it was actually pretty good though, but in forms of that particular definitive way playing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, I almost said Returns for some reason. Because I will say though, is the fact that the Switch version of Tropical Freeze definitely is the definitive way playing Tropical Freeze. Sure, it's a bit too easy aside from that, but in forms of thanks to the Funky Mode. But for the most part though, that particular version plays exactly like how it does in the Wii U version, besides with the forms of, well, limited amount of, well, not so much limited amount, but it's just basically just managed to upgrade the visuals for a bit in the forms of, you know, 1080p, especially noticeable by the forms of, they managed to improve the load times, and especially noticeable by the forms of, pretty much for everything, yeah, so anyways. So let's go ahead and just fly straight forward, and hopefully we can be able to actually dash through those little dash paths and everything, and, yeah, seems more likely to Delta 4 anyway, but even then, that's as far as I can tell for that part, so anyways. Actually, I still have some plenty of time left before I'm able to actually move on to the final event on that specific video alone, but even then, now that can wait until after when I've done this particular objective, once I keep on failed on that stupid, you know, stunt fails. So that's gonna be pretty tedious at times. Anyways, but again, there's not much else I can talk for this point, because even then, I've heard there are some plenty of news about the forms of the E3 2018 stuff, is the fact that they've now finally planned what the forms of the E3 2018 floor plans. But in forms of, I would say, but in forms of, you know, by the likes of Sony and Microsoft and third-party companies, and even especially noticeable for the Nintendo as well. So I can't wait to see how the show floor will actually turn out to be. Most notably by the forms of they trying to be able to actually putting up the Super Smash Bros. Themed, E3 themed, so it makes it a little bit obvious with that particular point notice. Is it just me, or is that Alex Kidd is actually wearing his Father Christmas outfit? Gee, I wonder why that's actually there. I think it's probably because if you actually manage to bypass Christmas Day 2012, so that makes a prime example of how the fact that he makes his appearance in this game, just like the ones in the first game, except the fact that, well, you don't have to unlock characters from the shops or anything like that. So there we go, that concludes Boost Challenge in the forms of the Ada's Lair, and we move on to Sprint in the forms of Chili Castle, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I'm going to go back and I was actually 1 star off to able to actually unlock this next path. And since we've got enough stars to able to actually unlock this particular path, into sprint once again, and we're going back into afterburner level, and it appears to be we're actually going to be compete against with the actual Ghost Data character, but in forms of, I would say, knights, I'm presuming, because yeah, as you see on this little description for it, now we can tell without the fact that what the next unlockable character we're actually going to be unlocked. So once again, I'm going to be playing as Sonic, aka myself, so even now that hopefully we can get back on track on things. So everything else will be just as welcoming as usual will be. So yeah, we finally glad to be back in new forms of Carrier Zone, because yeah, it's been a long while since I've actually been to this stage, ever since, well, the actual main race. Except the fact of the matter is that I've actually claimed 2nd place instead of 1st place, because normally those computer opponents are super damn well whenever they know the track layouts very perfectly. We've especially noticed about they use items a lot, which even though now that might be sounds a little bit more of a cheaper sum at points. But anyways, let's go ahead and get ourselves our transform boost. And just drift along around here. And hopefully just get onto these little dash panels and everything like that. And yeah, for the most part it checks out there, but even then though that this is why the challenges themselves can get a little bit more difficult. If those of you ever be very curious to able to try out those particular objectives. Well, how come Nice got the exact same time as I have? Oh, wait a minute, she's right behind me, almost. But luckily though, there's actually a shortcut that we can take, but in forms of, I'll show you just about right about now. Because if you go all the way from there, that way you can actually perform a shortcut. But sometimes that my drifting wasn't exactly working very well as I hope it would be. But there we go, now we've accomplished by the forms of the sprint. So, oh, I got another achievement. I think I know what this is. It's basically, since I've actually played as Sonic most of the time, so that means I would able to actually get myself my character level up. So yeah, that's the reason why the achievement was there in the first place, and we've got actually unlock ourselves the balance mod, so even though that everything else will be just as that. So I'm afraid for this point, folks, is the fact that I'm going to be ending things off from this point here. So now before we end things off at this point right there, after winning success for this mission, you're actually able to actually unlock yourselves knights, which unfortunately though, I don't have that enough stars to able to actually unlock her just yet, because I need 9 stars left in order to actually unlock her. So anyways though, let's go ahead and end things off here for this point, so join me next time for Let's Play Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. Is that we're moving on to continuing by the forms of the, well, the Twilight Engine. So yeah, see you guys next time. Later, fellas.